Welcome, Merav Michaeli. It used to be the party in power. It used to be the transformative party. But now Labour is barely registering on the political dial. What are you going to do about it?
Well, good evening and good morning, Christiane, and thank you for having me here. Actually, it's not already in danger. Thankfully, after having to fight for a long time in order to really even force on the previous leader of Labour to hold primaries as he was supposed to according to the Constitution, we went all the way to the Supreme Court until I won this battle. Ever since I won the primaries, thankfully Labour is back on its feet and it's giving a good fight on its way back. And my project is to take it back to fulfilling its role as the governing party of the center-left camp in Israel, as someone and actually a political body that needs to take Israel back towards the Zionist vision that it has strayed from too long under Benjamin Netanyahu.
So when you got the job, when you were named and I guess elected as head of your party, the left-leaning newspaper in your country, Haaretz, said, "Welcome to the worst job in Israeli politics, Merav Michaeli." And just to hammer the point home, the actual facts show that, from 1995, where your party had about 36% of the country. Now in 2021, it's about 16%. So again, you have managed to move the dial a bit since you've taken over. But what will it take to successfully contest an election from the left?
Well, what we're seeing now, the dysfunctional system, as you have described it very well at the opening, is a result of 12 years under Netanyahu, but actually this begins in 1993 when Netanyahu came onto the public and political sphere of Israeli politics. He introduced new language and standards that Israel never had before, and he started the campaign of hatred and incitement and delegitimization against Yitzhak Rabin, the late prime minister from Labour, against the Oslo Accord, against peace, against the left, against the Arabs. And it's been going on, this campaign by Netanyahu and his partners and very big financial powers that are backing extreme right-wing powers in Israel is continuing to this day. And the result is what we are seeing today, a political camp that is completely fractured and has no political power almost. But at the same time, we see that the majority of Israelis actually want what Labour has to offer. There's an amazing disconnect between the wishes and the desires and the interests of Israelis, because Israel is not Netanyahu, not at all. The majority of Israelis are interested in equality, gender equality, gay rights, in civil equality for Arab citizens. They are interested in a welfare state. They're interested in pluralism, in freedom of religion. And even after 28 years of incitement and delegitimization of the mere idea of the two-state solution, there still is a tiny majority supporting the two-state solution, even if many people are completely convinced that it's unachievable. So what we need to do now is really gain back our confidence that was shattered after the assassination of the late Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, the assassination that was caused by this incitement campaign. So we really have to get back up on our feet. Yes.
I just want to follow up on that because, a former opposition leader, Tzipi Livni, who you obviously know very well, has said that actually in this election campaign, nobody's talking about those issues that you're saying, and the very, very important issues, peace and the economy, all sorts of things. They're just talking about who's for and against Bibi, as she calls him by his known nickname. And he does seem to have 9 lives. And he is riding high on what is being called a very successful vaccine rollout. He claims, and many in your country claim, that they're getting back to normal. he is coming into this election with quite a lot that the people approve of right now.
The vaccine operation that Netanyahu brags about so much is actually enabled not because he's such a talented buyer, but because of the infrastructure that labor has built here in the beginning, at the beginning of the early days of Israel. The infrastructure of public health, something that labor stands for ever since. Infrastructure for major social services for people of Israel. Listen, Netanyahu, it's important to notice, Netanyahu has not won a single election ever since 2009. The only reason why he was able to form governments over and over again was because leaders from the center-left camp were giving him the votes, the mandates that they received from people who wanted to replace him. That was Ehud Barak in 2009, it was Yair Lapid in 2013, and of course, and now it's Benny Gantz that is still doing it while sitting with Netanyahu in his government as we are speaking. So this is why it is so important for me, as someone who never gave in to Netanyahu and never was a partner in any of his governments, it's so important for me to give hope again to a majority of Israelis who want a decent Israel, who do believe in an Israel that is a just society, that is striving for peace. What we need is really to give people the confidence that we can build back political power that can become government again. It's a long way, and it's not going to happen in this election, but if we don't start doing it, it will never happen. This is why I said from the first moment, I am taking labor back to the Rabin way, to the point where he was assassinated after having understanding that Israel needs to turn back towards the Zionist vision, a Jewish home with equality for all its citizens, striving for a just society and peace. This is what this project for me is now, because Israel's future depends on it.
Well, it's interesting you say that because, as you say, quite a few of politicians who believe what you're saying, and many are concerned that if there isn't a deal with the Palestinians, a proper peace deal, it could very severely compromise Israel's status as a democratic Jewish state. So I want to ask you, though, the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room, obviously, is that Benjamin Netanyahu, the sitting prime minister, is under criminal indictment for corruption and a number of issues leading to that. And yet he hasn't resigned, he refuses to, and you keep going to these elections. The last Likud prime minister who was indicted and investigated was Ehud Olmert, and he did actually resign. And now he's basically saying that, that he feels nothing is of any significance to him, Netanyahu, except his own personal fate. This is the only thing he cares for. And moreover, they believe that he wants to win in order to change the dynamic in the Knesset and get this case dismissed against him. What do you think is going to happen? You don't think that Benjamin Netanyahu is ever going to resign, right? How do you think that he's ever going to answer this indictment against him? Or are you going to endless elections? Some people think there might be another one, after this one.
Well, unfortunately, this is a danger that we are facing. So what we're obligated to do is really do our best to try and hope that we can achieve 61 mandates, a bloc that wants and committed to replace Netanyahu as prime minister. We have seen very distinctly that ever since Netanyahu was indicted, actually ever since he was interrogated, he's constantly attacking the democratic institutions in Israel, the police, and now the justice system, and the Supreme Court, and the Attorney General. And it's very clear for, I think, many of Israel's citizens how dangerous it is to have a prime minister in such a situation while he's using his position to weaken Israeli democracy. This is why it is so pressing that we get the block of 61 mandate necessary to replace Netanyahu, if there is a result that enables that, it will be the responsibility of all the chairs of the different parties who are very much far apart in their ideologies and the way they see the future of Israel. But if we manage to get this number of mandates, it will be on us to find as narrow as possible even consensus that we can agree on and build a coalition to start the rehabilitation of Israeli politics, Israeli democracy, and the state of Israel. Hopefully we can achieve that. So, as I said, this is really, it's extremely important for Israel and its future.
So as I said, you are the only female leader of a major party heading into these elections. You're also a feminist. And many have looked, and we've looked at your famous TED Talk, which was called Cancel Marriage. I'm just going to put a little clip of that, and we're going to talk about that for a minute.
Still today, when a couple gets married, they are pronounced man and wife. The man remains a man, and the woman is turned into a wife.
Well, I'm sure, you know, there's a lot of that resonates with a lot of people around the world. But also, Merav Michaeli, you wear black all the time. I read it, and now I see you wearing black because you say that you don't want people to look at what you're wearing, but listen to what you're saying. Talk to me about the TED Talk, your feminism, and what you're trying to do as a woman in politics.
What I've been trying to do as a woman before I was in politics. I'm fighting for equality, both gender equality, but as a feminist, I want a more equal society for all, and that is what I've been working for ever since I can remember. And yes, I'm very well known in Israel for my feminism, and this is something that actually I find extremely energizing now that I am heading a major party in Israel. That is true for a lot of women, but also for men, because we already have many men who are very interested in equality and understand how much they have to gain from a world that is egalitarian. And actually, Labor under me is the first ever party that is running to the Knesset with an egalitarian, a completely egalitarian list, where every other seat is occupied by a man. The first one is by a woman, and then a man, woman, man, one woman. And this is, for me, I've been trying to achieve that ever since I entered politics 8 years ago under other chairs of the party, and I haven't been able to. And as soon as I was elected, this was my first decision, and it just happened like magic. So much can happen, and our society can be so much better, so much more just, and in a way that really derives so much more prosperity and so much more security, a personal security for all. This is what I've been working for over 30 years now, and this is what I've been trying to do in politics and will continue to do in politics as now the chair of Labor.
Merav Michaeli, the Labor leader, thank you for joining us.